Hey guys, we are going to be talking about makeup brushes today. I'm going to be sharing with you the brushes that I think are the best for certain tasks that we go through during our makeup routine. So foundation brushes, cheek brushes, cream highlighter brushes, eyeshadow, etc., etc. And I am a huge lover of brushes. You guys have probably taken a peek at my makeup brush collection. That is, I don't know, maybe a quarter of my makeup brushes. I've accumulated quite a lot starting my YouTube channel here about, I don't know, 8 years ago. And yeah, I'm just a huge brush fiend. So I have tried a lot and I have narrowed down the brushes that I think are the absolute best. So I'm going to be talking about natural hair brushes, synthetic hair brushes, a multitude of different brands. So get out your notebooks, get out your pens and pencils, and let's get to it. Why don't we go ahead with the best foundation brushes? Now, foundation brushes, I would say, are brushes that are good with cream and liquid products that you want to put all over your face. So they're going to be of a bigger size. They're going to make efficient work of applying something all over your face. So I would also use these brushes for, let's say, a primer, if you don't feel like using your fingers, or any other kind of base product that you want to put down. Sometimes you want to put down one that's glowy, sometimes you want to put down one that's a little bronzy, but basically a cream or liquid product that you want all over your face in an even application. So the one brush that you guys have probably seen me use the most on my channel is the BK Beauty 101 brush. I happen to be holding up the Angie Hot and Flashy travel set version, but the top of this brush is basically the same. It just depends which version you get. Here is the same exact brush, but in their Holy Grail trio set, I believe. It has a special, like, all metallic handle and ferrule. And then I do have one with their typical packaging here with the gold ferrule and the maroon handle. They're all dirty though. I think I probably have 2 or 3. Anyway, I love this brush. It is synthetic haired. I prefer synthetic hair brushes, or at least a nice mixture of synthetic hair brushes for liquid and cream products. The reason for that is because when you use liquid and cream products, what will happen is it dries down onto the hairs of the brush, and natural hair brushes are much more delicate than synthetic hair brushes. And when something dries down, it in a micro way, because you can't even really see it or feel it, but it hardens around, it coats every single hair, and there's a chance of it snapping off and breaking off. So you really want to choose synthetic haired brushes in general for cream and liquid products. That goes for eyeshadows as well, or cheek products as well. So BK Beauty is an incredible brand when it comes to synthetic haired brushes. Admittedly, I really prefer natural haired brushes, and I'll explain why when I get to my first natural hair brush. But BK Beauty has done an incredible job creating synthetic haired brushes that mimic natural hair brushes. So this is very soft, but not too soft. You don't want a brush that's too soft. I think in any application, you don't want a brush that's too soft because it becomes basically impotent. It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't move product or whatever. So BK Beauty has created really beautiful synthetic haired brushes that are soft to the touch, but effective. They're not too soft. What I really like about this brush is that it is dense enough so that it moves your product around, and it has a wonderful angle to it. Here it is on the side. And it's got this wonderful oval shaped ferrule. So it just really lends itself to kind of spreading out and blending out large areas of cream and liquid products. So this makes very fast work for foundation application. It's very soft. And because these hairs are dense enough, you don't get like any sort of streaky application. So the BK Beauty 101 brush, absolutely one of my favorite makeup brushes. Now, some alternatives is the Rephr B04. This is another synthetic haired brush. It is very similarly shaped. It's just a little bit, like a teensy bit smaller than the BK Beauty. Almost indetectable, but it's just a little bit more narrow. But this is a nice option, all for the same reasons. Very soft. It has this wonderful angle, dense but not too dense, soft but not too soft. Really, really beautiful. Now, this brush is from Sonia G. It is their jumbo base. And again, it has a very similar look and feel to the Rephr and the BK Beauty that I just mentioned. It has an oval ferrule. It has this angle up here. So it basically acts the same way. This brush, however, has some natural hair and some synthetic hairs. I think it's 50-50. So because it has both natural and synthetic hairs, I think it just brings the best of both worlds to the table. The softness and the minkiness and some other of the beautiful properties of natural hair brushes, which again, I'll talk about a little bit later. And then the synthetic hair brushes, which, you know, a little bit easier to care for, and they just work really, really well with liquid and cream products. And then I have two options, which both have round ferrules. So all of these that I spoke about before have oval ferrules, and I think they're really great when you have an angled head and you really want to spread your product out. I think that's great. But I love these two foundation brushes. They have a round ferrule. So if you're more into buffing, so let's say maybe you're using a powder foundation that has a little bit of creaminess, or you're going into a cushion foundation. I like to stamp like right up and down onto a cushion foundation. I just prefer one that has like a similar shape to the cushion. So I do like this Bobbi Brown full coverage face. This is 100% synthetic hairs, and it has like the density of those other three brushes that I mentioned, but it's just in this different form. So it's kind of personal preference. It's also, I think, what type of foundation you're putting on. Sometimes people like to buff with those oval shaped angled brushes. Those are definitely more for sweeping. This foundation brush, I really enjoy. This is from La Mer. It is round, but I like to use this one to swipe. I don't necessarily buff out foundation with this one, but there's something about the angle of the bristles, and this is synthetic haired as well. This just blends out foundation really, really nicely, and I like that it's a little pointed at the top here. Sorry, a lot of my brushes are dirty, I apologize, but I use them so often, and every time I went to go wash them when I would get ready for this video and I was putting makeup on, I'm like, I just dirtied up all my favorite brushes again. So anyway, I apologize that a lot of my brushes are dirty, but you know I use them. So this has a little bit of a point to it, and it's great for around the nostrils. Not that these aren't great, but this one I feel like I'm just like kind of, you know, getting in there and like swiping, while this one really gets into crevices really easily, or like underneath my eyes really, really easily. So I don't know, just some days I prefer the La Mer, some days I prefer one of these guys, some days I prefer the Bobbi Brown, some days it's just a matter of what's clean. But these 5 foundation brushes are ones that I use the most. There are a ton of other brushes that you'll probably see me use often that I love, that I'm not going to mention in this video because it would just be too much and this video would take forever, and I want to present to you some really nice options instead of confusing the issue. Okay, concealer brushes. So concealers generally are a cream or liquid product. So again, I've got more synthetic haired versions for you. So the BK Beauty A506, this is basically a mini 101. So this is like a mini version of the foundation brush. Pretty much has like the same profile, just in mini form. It has that wonderful fingertip top so that it's great for pouncing. It's also great for spreading out and blending, and it's super duper soft. So I love this one, and I also love the Hourglass one. So the Hourglass one is just a little bit narrower. Can you see that in the way this one like fans out? This one doesn't do that. So this one is a little bit more concentrated, and I like this one for pouncing. I do also like applying powder over my concealer with a brush like this that's a little bit denser, and I can kind of press things in. So I would probably opt for this in terms of concealer. With like a pan concealer, I would want to kind of dab into the pan and then press that on, because it just has like a little bit of a firmer touch to the BK Beauty, which is great for more like liquid concealers. This next brush I want to talk about. It is discontinued. It is discontinued, but I think you could probably find a similar one from a Japanese brush company. So this is the Trish McEvoy number 55 Deluxe Blender brush. It is a flat brush, and this is sable hair. Sable hair is one of my absolute favorite natural hairs, especially when it comes to cream and liquid products. So like I was mentioning before about cream and liquid products and natural hairs, because natural hairs are more delicate and more fragile than synthetic fibers, cream and liquids in general are just too rough for them, and you run the risk of like breaking off the hairs. Sable hairs are much stronger, and they also have a bigger cuticle. So natural hairs have cuticles in them, much like our hair. They're basically little raised like barbs in your hair. And the reason why I love natural hair brushes is that these barbs pick up product much more easily than synthetic hair. Synthetic hairs generally are just smoother. I think they're doing a much better job these days with kind of imitating those cuticles, but it's really hard to beat natural hair because of that. So these cuticles pick up product really easily. And not only do they pick up product easily, but they also lay down product in a way that the cuticles kind of are giving up the product in this sort of like they're dispensing it out slowly kind of way. So you are almost like always airbrushing product down when you're using a natural haired brush. It comes off the bristles more slowly versus synthetic brushes, where I feel like when you put product down, especially when it comes to eyeshadows, you pick up the product with your brush and you put the brush, against your skin, and then you start to blend. When you use a synthetic brush, when you put it down, so much of the product just gets plopped right down in place. Where when you use a natural haired brush, when you put it down, the cuticles don't give up all of the product at once. So you put it down and then you're able to kind of go back and forth. And as you're moving the bristles, more and more of the product is being dispensed. So that's basically a rundown of why I like natural haired brushes and why I think they perform better, but they are higher maintenance. They're a little bit more fragile. You don't want to wash them too often because you run the risk of breaking them. You have to be a little bit more careful when you do wash them. We'll talk about washing at the very end. But anyway, I'm saying all that because sable hair is much stronger than the typical hairs that are used in natural haired brushes, which we'll talk about. And they have a much longer cuticle. So it's really just great for cream and liquid products. It just lays product down really nicely. So the reason why I like this brush and this shape is that when you use it for concealer, it like paints the concealer on perfectly. And when you use a sable hair brush in this way, it's so soft. It's minky smooth. But this Trish McEvoy brush, I'm pretty sure it's discontinued. I haven't seen it in a while. And I bought this brush because when Armani Beauty came out with brushes for the very first time, they were natural haired. And they had a brush just like this. They discontinued it. They moved all over to synthetic hairs. And so I was like kind of desperate to find a brush like this. I came across this one, got this one, fell in love with it, and I think they discontinued it. Now there is a brush kind of similar that I got from Chikuhodo. It's not exactly the same. Here it is. I didn't even get this living here. When I traveled to Japan, I actually purchased this. So I'm not even sure if you can get it. But it is the G12 brush. If I find anything online similar to any of these, it's 100% sable. I will link it down below, but I've had a hard time finding it. So this brush, this Chikuhodo brush, is just a little bit flatter and a little bit wider. So this, I think, is a little bit better for like highlight versus like concealer underneath the eye, because of the flatness of the brush. So anyway, I love this brush, and I know I've talked about this brush in previous best makeup brush videos that I've done. So I just wanted to mention this again. I didn't want you to think that I just forgot about it or changed my mind about it. I still absolutely love it, but I do believe it's discontinued. Okay, let's talk about powder brushes. So my favorite synthetic haired powder brush is this BK Beauty 102 brush. When it comes to synthetic hair brushes, you're gonna hear me talk about BK Beauty a lot. I think they're one of the companies that has really taken the time to use fibers, synthetic fibers that mimic natural haired fibers. There's other ones that you'll hear me mention, but BK Beauty is really a standout. So if you like or prefer synthetic hair brushes, just in general, I would go with BK Beauty. But this 102 brush is just such a wonderful powder brush because it's big, it's fluffy, it's rounded. And when I apply loose powder, I like a very, very sheer, light coating of loose powder. I don't want the powder to really do much more than just set down my foundation. So if my foundation's extremely tacky in any way, I want it to be set down. And I want the powder to do just like a subtle softening. I don't want any extra coverage or anything like that. So I prefer a brush that's very loose, that's very, very fluffy. So the more fluffy a brush is, the lighter the application. The more dense a brush is, the heavier the application, the heavier the laydown. So this is, I keep doing this because I feel like you get a sense of how fluffy it is. It's like a pom-pom, but this 102 brush is amazing. Now, the other 3 brushes I'm going to talk about are all from Sonia G, and they're all natural haired brushes. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about natural hair brushes here. But this one is the TF1. This is a flat brush, which I think is great if you're someone that likes to maybe pounce powder on and then swipe it away. This is really, really great. You really want to use flat shaped brushes if you're going to do a lot of swiping, and round shaped brushes if you're going to do a lot of buffing. So the way I like to use powder, I do prefer these brushes that have a little bit of an oval, flatter shape. Like this 102 is not completely flat, but it is oval. So I can like swipe away nicely. This TF1, I can swipe away. This Face Pro from Sonia G is amazing because it's angled. I really like this. And this brush is really great, not only for loose powder. I mean, a lot of these brushes are kind of like multitask, but because it's angled, I really like using this for bronzer when I'm going to use it to contour and I need to get in and apply powder like in a very specific area. This is really great for that. And then the Master Face brush is round. So this is great if you're someone that really likes to buff in their powder. And I usually leave any kind of buffing in for finishing powder, but this is great if you are maybe just working in your powder. Maybe you do like loose powder with a little bit more coverage, let's say. This is really, really nice to kind of buff it in, or you're looking for a specific kind of finish. This is great for buffing in powder. So I really like these 4 powder brushes, synthetic haired from BK Beauty, and these 3 from Sonia G. All right, now for cream and liquid products on your cheeks. So this is like cream and liquid bronzers or blushes or highlights. And I have quite a few here because I really, really like cream cheek products. And I do think a lot of these brushes can serve double duty, which I'll mention as I go through them. But the first one is this mini base brush from Sonia G. And this one is just absolutely fabulous for all of those cheek products. It has a round ferrule, it has mixed hairs, so it's natural and synthetic hair. And it's great for pouncing, it's great for blending, it's great for swiping. I love it for highlight, cheek. It's a little bit small if you're gonna be doing a cream bronzer kind of all over, but it's also great for like concealer. It's great for maybe like blending in product around your nostrils. It's just an all around great brush for cream and liquid. I almost wanna say blush every time I say brush. It's a great brush for cream and liquid products. So I love this one, and I'm holding up the mini Keyaki one. So this is great for travel as well. It has a really small handle, beautiful wood. And this brush always reminds me of that Zoeva 110 brush, which was absolutely iconic. It is the brush I remember that I think put Zoeva on the map. I think Lisa Eldridge is the one that made it really popular. And here in the States, it was really difficult to get. I believe it's like a European brand, and I'm not even sure what happened to it, but I have one from back in the day. I hunted this down, and I think I ended up purchasing this off of Selfridges. And this is what it looks like. And the mini Keyaki is very, very similar. This is 100% synthetic. But I remember Lisa Eldridge would put foundation on. She loves smaller brushes. She would put foundation on all over with this tiny brush. So yeah, I hunted this down. I love it. And then when Sonia G came out with this, I was like, yes. Yes, thank you so much. So anyway, that is the mini base brush from Sonia G. Again, we've got another BK Beauty if you're looking for something synthetic. This is the 115 brush, and this is basically the brush between the 101 foundation and the concealer brush, the 506. So here's 101, 506, and then here is 115. So it's right in between. And again, because it's angled, it just makes like application really easy when you're holding it in your hand. And I love like the density of the brush. I love the softness and the elasticity, the kind of like bounce back of the fibers. I really like pouncing cream products down, especially blush. And then maybe I'll do a little bit of blending out at the end, but I don't like kind of disturbing too much of my cream products all at once. So I just like to pounce, and this is a great pouncing brush. It's so, so good. So that is the 115. And then this Westman Atelier brush, this is the blender brush. This is a flat top style kabuki brush. This is 100% synthetic hairs. These are handcrafted in Japan. And I believe Gucci Westman created this brush to be used with her super loaded tinted highlights. So these guys that come in this compact. So she, I believe, that's what I've heard, she created this brush to kind of fit right in there and swirl around and pick up product. But I have been absolutely loving this with her Sun Tone bronzing drops. So it is absolutely wonderful with cream products like this, liquid products like those bronzing drops. This is such an interesting brush because it looks and it feels so big, but when I want to just get product in, it seems to know where I want to do it. So when I pick up some of the bronzing drops like on the back of my hand and I just start pouncing it where I want, it just does such a nice job like diffusing the product when I'm just bouncing. I feel like when I apply a product with this brush while I'm pouncing, it looks like I've swept it on. So there's something about, I don't know, the bristles, and they just sort of, I don't know, like the product is just kind of like automatically diffused when I start pouncing. And it's just wonderful. It also does a good job like when I'm done pouncing, if I need to blend in a little bit. This shape brush is great if you want to do a little circular motion blending out of product. It's wonderful. It's super duper soft, and it is fairly dense. So when you wash this brush, it does take a little bit of elbow grease to get all the product out because it is so dense. But that is a great one. All right, when it comes to powder bronzers, I like a big brush. I like a really, really big brush. Generally, I like brushes for bronzer that are also flatter than they are round, because then I can kind of do my bronzer thing underneath the cheekbones, around my forehead, and then I can use it to like sweep across my forehead. And so I've got 3 favorites here. I mean, there's a lot more, but these are probably like my desert island picks. So the Sonia G Jumbo Bronzer, this brush is just, it's gigantic, it's fluffy, it's soft. So these are made of dyed goat hairs, which is perfect for powder products. Now, you're not supposed to use cream or liquid products with dyed natural hairs because you don't want to run the risk of like leaching dye out of the hairs. That's never happened to me. I've never ever done that. I haven't tested it too much, but that's really kind of like the rule here. So don't use cream or liquid products with dyed natural hairs unless it's a natural hair brush that has synthetic hairs in there as well, or one that's really made for that. So like sable hair really is made for that. But anyway, when it's dyed natural hair, just stay away from using it with a cream or liquid product. So for powder bronzer, I love this jumbo powder brush. I mean, I feel like it just speaks for itself. It's huge, it's soft, it makes very, very quick work of applying bronzer. It just adds on any bronzer in such a beautiful, diffused way. So that is the jumbo bronzer. The 22 brush from Rephr is very, very similar to the jumbo bronzer, as you can see. But this is undyed goat hair. This is dyed, this is undyed. So sometimes it's just a preference. Some people like white haired, some people like this darker haired bristle brush. I don't necessarily have a preference. I do feel like sometimes it's easier to work with white hairs because I can see how much product I've picked up. I know just by sight when my brush is dirty. So sometimes I kind of tend to prefer undyed. But anyway, very, very similar shape, but this is another option, a gorgeous one. And then the Niji Pro, I'm holding up the travel version from Sonia G, is if you want something a little bit stronger of an application. This is much more dense. You can see the ferrule here is pinched. So it just has brought in all of the hair. So you're gonna get like a denser, heavier application. So if I'm going in maybe for some more dramatic look and I want to really kind of like bronzer, I will use a brush like this. So it's good for that if you really like kind of like a stronger bronze or contour application. All right, for Blush, I've got 4 brushes here. I'm going to start with the BK Beauty. This is the 111 brush. This is, I think, the biggest one. Kind of the biggest one out of the 4 I'll be talking about, but this has a pinched ferrule. It's 100% synthetic, and it's a fairly dense brush. So this is going to give you kind of a strong blush application. I like a strong blush, but this is also really, really great if you're going to be picking up like baked gel products. So I think I've mentioned this before in previous videos, where if you're dealing with a baked gel product, not a pressed powder. Sorry, I'm looking around to see if I have an example. Hold on. So I talked about this Sicily bronzer and how this was probably the first baked gel product I ever used. And when I first got it, I think I used probably a brush, like a really fluffy synthetic haired brush. Went in, didn't really pick up product, and I was like, what's wrong with this? This product sucks. And I realized I was just using the wrong brush. So when I used a much denser brush, and I think at that time it was Sonia G's very first giant fan brush, which she's since replaced with all of these other wonderful brushes like this Niji or whatever. You go in with a really dense type of brush and you're gonna be able to pick up these baked gel powders. You don't really have to think too much if the product is like a pressed powder. Like this Gucci is just a pressed powder product. These pick up much more easily, some easier than others. But a baked gel powder, it's just because it's baked, it's just a little bit harder. So anyway, I always recommend, and I say this in my videos, I always recommend a denser brush and a natural haired one at that. But this 111 brush from BK Beauty, even though it's synthetic haired, it is decent at picking a product from like a gel baked formula. And you know, it's because BK Beauty, the synthetic hairs are so great, but this brush itself is fairly dense. These other 3 blush brushes I'm gonna talk about are all natural haired. So these 2 Rephr brushes, I just love so much. So this one is 5. This is one of the first brushes they came out with. This one I feel like is just your standard like Goldilocks blush brush. It has a pinched ferrule. It comes out to a nice kind of bulb shape. So it's great for sweeping. It's great for buffing. It is great for pouncing. And it's just a wonderful size. It's just like medium in its size. So this one, I just feel like if I'm not sure if I need a starting point and I just like, or I'm packing like one brush for a trip, this quite often is the blush brush that I pick. This is also another brush that I like to use with cream and liquid products. If I want like a light touch, this is wonderful. This 24 brush, which I just mentioned with the cream and liquid blush products, this one is great, but it is denser. So compared to the number 5, this is gonna give you like a heavier sort of application, especially with powder products. But this one is really, really great for baked gel powder products. I really recommend this brush for that. And then this brush from Sonia G, this is the Cheek Pro. I love this brush because it's a soft, soft touch. It like is a kitten paw. It has a pinched ferrule. It has dyed natural hairs. And it's so soft and it really puts on blush in a really soft, diffused way. So this is also great for a really highly pigmented blush, or if you just want a really light application, maybe you're not into a strong blush look, this is wonderful. Of course, because this is natural hair, it does pick up product really easily. So you could very easily just pick up a ton of product with this brush and put on blush in a really heavy way if that's what you like. But I think where this brush really sings is if you want like kind of a nice, soft application. This Cheek Pro brush is fantastic. So BK Beauty 111, great synthetic hair blush brush. The Rephr number 5, I think is like the Goldilocks of blush brushes, undyed natural goat hair. The Rephr number 24 brush is a much stronger application, natural undyed goat hair. And then this dyed goat hair from Sonia G, the Cheek Pro, I think has the softest, most diffused touch. Okay, so for powder highlights, I've got 4 brushes here. So the BK Beauty 112 brush. This is a really light, angled, flat ferrule, pinched style brush. And it has fairly long hairs compared to the width of the brush. So you're gonna get a really nice, light application. This is really great if you want to apply your highlighter and you don't necessarily want to work it in. It's kind of like a nice fan brush. I'm not the biggest fan I'm not the biggest fan, no pun intended, of fan brushes that are really, let me find one, really kind of light. This is the Fan Pro from Sonia G. This is like in the vein of the fan brush that I'm talking about, where you're just lightly kind of hitting areas to highlight, really, really lightly. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I really like working my highlight in. It's almost like burnishing the highlight into my skin. You just get a really, really nice glow when you work it in like a little bit. So I don't like, I'm not a fan of these fan brushes in general. In general, I know they have their place and I will use them occasionally, but this is like for highlight, this is like the lightest kind of application brush that I'll go for. And so it is great to kind of pounce the highlight on, and then I like to just sort of, you know, sweep over it and kind of work it in a little bit. So this for me is great for highlights that really aren't like super, super shiny, like the ones that I've been trying out lately, like the new Dior one. I would not use this with the new Dior because it would just end up kind of sitting on my skin, and I think it would just look kind of flaky. So definitely for like a lighter kind of touch highlight, a natural kind of highlight, like a light powder application, this is perfect, the 112. For highlights like I was just talking about, like the Dior one, I love using a fan brush like this one. So this is the Fan M, the medium fan brush from Sonia G. So this will give you a very strong application, a very, very strong laydown of the product. But because it has a dense feel, you'll be able to work out the product and really work it in, really kind of like blend it into your skin and really polish it up versus a fan brush like this, which is meant to just lay down the product. So I really, really like this brush for like baked gel powder, high shine highlighters. This dense kind of fan brush is absolutely perfect. The Worker fan from Sonia G is another good one. I still prefer this fan medium. And then she even has the Fan Large. Here, I'll hold it up next to the medium. The Fan Large. This is also great for like bronzers or contours or whatever. I think it's a little bit big for highlight. But then again, you may really like your highlight. So there is a large option, but I do like the Fan Medium just for like general purpose, high shine highlighters. And this brush from Rephr and Alexandra Anel, this is the AA01 brush. I don't know if this is limited edition. I really hope it's not, but this is such a beautiful, beautiful brush. It will give you, I think, a little bit of a stronger application versus the BK Beauty 112 that I first mentioned, but definitely much lighter than the fan brush. And it just has this like beautiful angle, but it's still really fluffy on top. It's almost, yeah, it just is almost like this wild kind of brush. You can see a little disheveled at the top there. So it just has this wonderful way of laying down product. And I really like using this brush when I'm brushing, not when I necessarily need to go back and forth or round and round, but this is really great if I just want to sweep product on. This is really, really wonderful. Another highlight brush I love is the Wang F2 brush. So I'll use this for blush as well, you can see. And let me just hold it up next to the Alexandra Anel. So this one is a little bit bigger, but I like that it has this dome top. It is undyed goat hair, so it's super duper soft. And so I reach for this brush when I'm highlighting, even though I do feel like it's a little bit big if you want just like, you know, to highlight a little bit here. But sometimes I really like to make sure that I'm blending it into my blush, or it's a highlight with a little bit more pigment than just something that's shiny. It has maybe a little bit of pink in there or whatever, and I wanna make sure it blends into my blush. I will use like a larger highlight brush, and this one I really love for that. So I can buff because of the round shape to it, and I can buff it into the blush underneath and apply it up top here all at the same time. So this is a great, great brush, super soft, but great for blush, great for highlight, I think. Any kind of cheek product. This shape is really versatile. Okay guys, let's move over to eyeshadow brushes. I have quite a few. I like just pulled out like kind of willy-nilly all the ones that I really like and enjoy or whatever, and I still have a bunch that need to be washed. And I looked down and I have too many. So I brought it back. And I hope I'm not forgetting any, but I think I have a really good selection and variety here of synthetic hairs and natural hair and, you know, different purposes or whatever. So I'm gonna start with two brushes that I probably use the most, I would say. And it is the BK Beauty 202 brush. This is a great blender brush. It's the perfect like size and shape for me if I just want to put down eyeshadow, just like really quickly all over my lid. Nothing too specific or detailed yet. Just putting down kind of like that first shade. I really like using this brush, even on the outside here. It's really great for that. It has a great angle to the dome top. It is a round ferrule. The hair's BK Beauty, very, very soft, picks up product nicely. And then this Rephr brush, this number 1 Rephr brush, sort of just like my standard flat shader brush. So these round blender brushes are generally just for that, for blending. These flat shader brushes are really for laying down products. So if I really want to just lay down a shade, just sort of like on the main part of my lid here, I like to use a flat brush like this. Flat brushes I also always reach for, or generally reach for if I'm using a metallic kind of shade, because the shape of these brushes and the density of the bristles usually picks up and holds product a lot better than a fluffy brush like this. You pick up like a really kind of metallic, maybe there's some like micro glitters in there. You pick up a product like that with this brush and you start going back and forth, you're gonna get a ton of fallout. So this is really great for very like purposeful laying down of eyeshadow. It's also great maybe with like a cream or putty kind of eyeshadow. You kind of like pick it up, you scoop it out, and then you really like kind of smear it on your lid. This is really great for that. So these are kind of like my two go-to like workhorse brushes. And then in terms of kind of more detailed blending, I really do love this A502 brush from BK Beauty and Angie Hot and Flashy. It's basically a smaller version of this 202 brush, but I've really, really come to appreciate this smaller, more detailed brush because of Angie's kind of mission with her eye brushes, especially is for like hooded or aging eyes. And I am definitely getting that. You guys can probably see, like whenever I put eyeshadow down now, I feel like I get like a patch of eyeshadow there. And it's basically just kind of getting caught underneath this skin that's just sagging a little more than it used to. So I love kind of getting in with this blending brush and really getting in there. And then I'm able to kind of blend out all of that eyeshadow rather than trying to get in there with a bigger brush. So this A502 brush is really, really great for that. This next brush is a brush that you guys have heard me talk about for years, and it was actually part of my curated set that I did with Esom Cosmetics, but this is the W36 brush. This brush is of sable hair, so it is fantastic. It's fantastic at picking up product. It's fantastic with powder products, those baked gel powder eyeshadows, cream shadows, anything. And it's got the best shape to it. So it's angled, but it's got a round ferrule, but the bristles are really, really long. So when I read the description for this brush for the first time, they talk about how this is great for the crease, which it is. It really is great for that because of the angle, because of the precision. If you are a makeup artist and you really need to get in there and do something really precise, it's great for that. But I really love it because I love to add like a deeper, you guys know, a deeper shade on the outside of my lid here, and then kind of blend it in and do something lighter here. So what I like to do is pick up a deeper shadow, one that I want to add a little dimension with, and then I lay my brush down like this. You guys have seen me do this a 1,000 times, and then flick it over. And so I end up getting this really kind of clean, not like super cut, because I don't really like that look either, but like a nice clean application of a darker shade. And it works so well. I love it so much. This brush is just a stroke of genius. So that's the W36 brush. I cannot say enough good things about this brush. Another brush that I reach for quite often is this Chikuhodo brush. I think it's the Z5 or the Z4. I think it's the Z5. Anyway, I'll link it down below if I can find it. I believe it's still on Beautylish, but this is just called their eyeshadow brush. And it's just this flat shader brush, right? It doesn't look like there's much to it, but it is so soft, and it is larger than your average flat shader. So you can see here compared to the Rephr, which I kind of think is like a very average flat shader size. So it's wider, it's thicker. And even though these hairs are so soft, I think because of the density of this brush, it really picks up and lays down like a nice amount of product. And I know some people's eyelids are very, very sensitive, mine included. So nice soft brush like this it's almost like a massage. It's almost just like tickling your skin. It is an absolute dream. So this hair is gray squirrel hair, which is some of the softest around. Not that goat isn't soft, but squirrel is like minky soft. So if you have really sensitive eyelids, I would highly recommend this. And because it is gray squirrel, it is very, very delicate. I would only use this with powder products. And then the one brush that I love to use, especially with cream liquid shadows, and I'm doing a one and done look. You guys have heard me talk about this brush quite a bit, and I have at least 3 of them. There's just 3 sitting around here. So I think I probably have 4 or 5 of these brushes, but this is the Baby Blender brush from Westman Atelier. This is actually from her holiday set. It's like a holiday travel set. You can see it's much shorter. Anyway, she actually designed this brush to apply like highlighter. This is too small for me in terms of highlight, but in terms of eyeshadow, it is perfect. And because it's got this domed top and it's a round ferrule, I feel like I can just go back and forth and back and forth, and it fits into a lot of cream, like potted shadows really, really easily, like my Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize, Oyster Pearl. It's perfect for that. It's perfect for her iPods, the Westman Atelier iPods, the ones that come in 3s. It's got that putty. You can just like swirl this around and then windshield wiper motions, super fast. It's just like the perfect size, at least for my eye area. It's the perfect size and I love it. Obviously, I love it. And then I've got brushes that are a little bit more specific here. I do like to use eyeshadow for eyeliner. Sometimes I just find, I don't know, easier. Sometimes I just like the look. It's a little bit lighter. It's easier to smoke out if you're looking to kind of smudge out your eyeliner situation. So I love this T05 from Isom. And this kind of eyeliner brush where it looks like a mini paintbrush, super, super stiff. This is for stamping. So you kind of put your brush into the product and then you just wiggle it around and you just let the product kind of climb up into the brush and then you just stamp. Maybe wiggle a little bit, stamp, wiggle a little bit, and you can just add eyeliner that way. I find it very easy to use. I think some people are intimidated using like a brush to apply eyeliner. It just feels like it's so, you know, like you have to be so careful and so detailed, but it's not the case. You just kind of like press it down and wiggle, press it down and wiggle. You don't have to like draw anything down. And I really like using a brush when I want to get like right underneath my lashes. So kind of like on the waterline up here, but really just at the base of the lashes and really just pressing up in there, getting product onto like that area right at the base of my lashes to really make them look like they're, you know, kind of like receded and coming from further away, makes them look longer, you know, the whole thing. So I love this brush for that. But in terms of drawing on eyeliner with like an eyeshadow, I do love the Sonia G pencil small brush. It's just really sharp, and because, I don't know, can you see the hairs for this brush are a little bit longer, so it's not like it's gonna stab you. I find a lot of pencil brushes, because they come to such a fine point, they make the hair so short so you have a lot of control, which is great, but they're hard then. It really kind of like is very pokey. And this, because of the longer length, you may have a little bit less control, but man, I think the trade-off is great because it's just so much more comfortable on the lid. It's so super soft, and I find I have plenty of control with this brush. Not a problem whatsoever. Now again, these brushes are a little bit extra, but this is the Builder S from Sonia G. Her Builder brushes, like, I don't know if you guys remember her original Builder brush from when she first came out with her brush set was, oh my God, it was nothing I had ever seen before. She designed it so that you could put it down into a pan and like wiggle the brush around and it would just suck up the product. And perfect for really metallic kind of piecey kind of eyeshadows, because the brush would just control it all. And she's extended this Builder line. She has different sizes and shapes for it. I do also have the Builder M here. So this is the Builder Small, and then this is the Builder Medium. And while they're a little bit different from her original Builder, very similar in the way I think about them. I use these brushes for shall we say, kind of like difficult shadows, shadows that are hard to pick up, shadows that have some fallout sometimes. These brushes tend to put them all under control, kind of tame them. And I really like this small one because I think it works perfectly right here if you want to add something to your tear duct area or to the inner corner. And those shadows, because I want something that's kind of light and bright, kind of metallic usually, those shadows can be very difficult. They can tend to have a little bit of fallout. So this brush is just perfect for that. Very specific, very, very specific, but you could probably find other uses for this brush because it comes to such a nice point. You could really blend out liner or you could apply liner with this. And then the medium one is just like a bigger version of that. So this is really great if you want to lay down really difficult shadows. So like in addition to the Rephr #1, this one has a little bit more control. It's firmer than the #1. And then this brush, this is the G29 from Isam. Because I really, I'm like shy about my eyeshadow. I don't really go for super bold eyeshadow looks, and so I'm always looking to like blend out my shadow. I'll apply it, and if it looks a little bit too bold, I'm like, okay, let me blend that out a little bit. So this is the brush I always reach for. It's kind of like my cleanup crew. So I've applied, I like the way my eyeshadow looks, but I feel like maybe I could soften up the edges a little bit. I can blend some shadows into others a little bit more. I will go in with this brush and just back and forth, kind of like brush wherever I feel like I need to blend a little bit more. I need to blend out, diffuse the edges a little bit more. This brush is great because it's actually pretty, I don't want to say rough because it's not like it hurts or anything, but it's dense and the hairs are just a little bit coarser. So it's really, really great to blend and like kind of work out a bunch of shadows all at once. And it's just, yeah, it's like a really nice kind of like finishing step. So that is the G29 from Isam. And then this brush actually really surprised me because I had no idea the shape of it. I just thought it was kind of like a shader, like the Rephr #1 brush. This is the Chantecaille Eye Basic brush. And so it kind of looks like, right, like a flat shader, but it's actually like a mini, do you see the angle? It is like a mini version of the 101 brush. It's like even minier. It's smaller than the concealer. Actually, let me hold it up next to the concealer. I have so many, oh, here we go. I have so many brushes sitting out here. What a mess. So it's like an even smaller concealer brush. So Chantecaille uses just synthetic hairs. Their brushes actually are very, very nice. If you want to, I don't know, like kind of go down the rabbit hole, or if there's like a set that appeals to you. Chantecaille is a brand that I feel like you could get a set and you'd be happy with all the brushes. I don't feel like any of their brushes are like bad in any way, like I would stay away from. All of their brushes are really, really well made and the shapes are very nice and they are very, very nice to use. So this Eye Basic brush, I love because it just has this angle and because it's synthetic haired. You can use it with cream liquid shadows. You can use it with powder shadows. They just came out with, I had it out here. Well, they just came out with the Les Papillons collection. They came out with those 2 eyeshadow trios. Those eyeshadows are baked gel powder formula. And so again, I would recommend using like a dense brush, probably using a natural haired brush, but this brush would actually be really nice because it is fairly dense and you can pick up product fairly nicely with this. And last but not least, I have very specific brushes that I like for finishing powder. And yes, you guys are going to hear me, if you guys have been following me for a while, hear me talk about the same thing. And, you know, I'm a little upset because this love affair that I have with finishing powder is because of Guerlain Meteorites, the previous version, and these brushes from Sonia G. So the previous version of Meteorites from Guerlain, before they changed the formula, now they're talc free and they changed the fragrance or whatever, I do not like the new ones. They're way too shiny, very, very shiny. The previous version, you would get a very beautiful satin finish. So I am still on the hunt for a really beautiful finishing powder. I do like the Sicily. The Sicily, they have like micro glitters in there, but you can buff them out. It comes fairly close to the Guerlain Meteorites, but I'm still on the hunt. I'm still on the hunt for the perfect finishing powder. When I use a finishing powder, I really, really like to buff and burnish the product in. But when you want like a really soft, diffused, satin, blurred look to your entire complexion, there's nothing better than the perfect finishing powder. If you have the old Girl on Meteorites, or if you can get your hands on an old one, go for it, absolutely. And then one of these buffing brushes from Sonia G. So the Buffer Pro and the Smooth Buffer. So Buffer Pro, Smooth Buffer. The Smooth Buffer is just a little bit smaller than the Buffer Pro. The Buffer Pro is also just a little bit denser. So it just kind of depends. I like the Buffer Pro. This is, like, if I had to pick between the two, I would say this one, go for this one. But this one does a really nice job as well. There's really a very, very slight, like almost undetectable difference between the two. But if you pick up finishing powder with this brush and then you pounce the powder on and then you burnish it into your skin, not only will you be blending out all of your face products, so have no fear if you end up with that Neapolitan ice cream, chocolate, strawberry, vanilla striping on your cheeks, you can always buff it out with this brush with some finishing powder and just get on in there. This brush, I've talked about this in so many different ways. I've talked about it like it's a Zamboni. Like a Zamboni, it'll turn your skin into that beautiful smooth ice. I've talked about it in terms of if you've ever like lived in a really big building or worked in a really big commercial building and they have those marble floors and at night they're polishing them. There's that guy riding that little thing or he's pushing something and it's polishing. It's like a mini Zamboni. It's got those big fluffer things at the bottom. That's what this brush is like. It is like a polisher. It is a complexion polisher. It is fantastic. And with the meteorites, and when I come across a finishing powder that I love, you guys know I will share it with you guys. I just haven't come across one yet. But this is wonderful. Because both of these are natural hair, if you want a synthetic haired version, I would go for the Chantecaille Buff and Blur. This is a wonderful brush. I don't think it's as good as the Buffer Pro, but it's very, very close. I feel like I just can't buff as aggressively as I can with the Buffer Pro because this will actually kind of move product underneath. So I just need to like graze my skin with this, but this is great for like pressing product in. This is a really wonderful brush for pressing. I actually really like using this with their Perfect Blur powder. The one, it's a baked product and it's in a compact. And if you work this brush in there and you press that powder in, whew, that is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Wonderful Chantecaille product. But in terms of buffing and in terms of a synthetic haired option, this I think is the closest to the Sonia G Buffer Pro. So I just threw a lot of information out at you. I just wanted to sum up again that natural hair brushes I just think are really, really fantastic because of those cuticles that they have. They pick up product really, really easily. But best of all, they dispense product almost like in a time release fashion so that when you're, applying the product, it's almost like giving you the product little by little. So makes it really easy to blend out product. It gives, those cuticles give the bristles like almost like little fingers. So it really helps with blending. But there are some really great synthetic hair brushes now. I feel like the synthetic brush market has improved like drastically since I started YouTube. I remember some of the synthetic brushes I used when I first started YouTube. They were so soft and flimsy. They like didn't do anything. I didn't know how you could use those at all. It was just really difficult to use. But BK Beauty brushes, fantastic. Hourglass brushes are fantastic. Chantecaille brushes are fantastic. These are probably some of my favorite, oh, and Westman Atelier, some of my favorite synthetic haired brushes. And natural haired brushes, I mean, I probably said the same ones over and over again, but Sonia G, Rephr, Wayne Goss, these are incredible. Oh, my Esom Sable brush. This brush is so precious to me. These brushes are incredible. Just absolutely wonderful. Now, when it comes to the care of brushes, I know this video is so long, so if you don't care about how you wash your brushes, just click off. I'll see you in my next one. But washing brushes. Now, when it comes to synthetic hair brushes, really easy. Really, really easy. You can use like a Dr. Bronner's soap. You can use like brush soaps. There's tons of brush soaps out there. Synthetic hairs, I think one of the things that makeup artists love about synthetic hairs and just your everyday user, the care for them is just so much easier than natural hair because I can wash these brushes, like get in there and not feel like I'm breaking the hairs or I'm like, malforming them in any way. They're tough. Synthetic hair brushes are, if they're made well. So like again, the brands that I talked about, they're made really, really well. And so you can wash synthetic brushes like every day if you wanted to. They will eventually age. You will probably have to replace them, after a while, like anything else, but they can kind of take a beating. Now, personally, just because I have so many brushes and I'm too lazy, I like using a cleaner like this. This is a daily brush cleaner. And what I do is I spray, I let it sit on the brush for a little while, and then I just rub it over a paper towel. Now, I think the instructions on here say not to spray. Yeah, it says to spray onto a cloth and then run the brush over the cloth. I spray this directly onto the brush. I've never had a problem. I think spraying this onto a cloth and then doing that, I just don't think that's enough. I want to get in there. So that's how I brush them, but you may want to follow the directions back here. I've never had a problem. I just wanted to pass that along to you. So I will use this one. This is from Sephora. I'll link it down below. It's just great for just like touch-ups or whatever. And I will use this with natural hair brushes as well. So I don't use water and soap to wash my natural hair brushes that often. And I separate them out. I am really, really careful when it comes to my brushes. I separate out my dirty natural hair brushes and my dirty synthetic hair brushes, and I wash my synthetic ones with water and like a Dr. Bronner soap, like unscented, quite often. I try to, at least. My natural haired ones, maybe once a month at most, maybe once every 2 months. I will just go in with this. I will just use a microfiber towel to wipe them off. So I'll take off any kind of excess powder this way. So like if I'm sitting here doing my makeup in like one session, I'll just use this for my natural hair brushes, and I'll probably use something like this with my synthetic hair brushes. And when you wash your brushes with soap and water, let's say, you want to make sure that you're drying your brushes like upside down. What you don't want is for water to dry inside the ferrule, because what will happen is, let's say you didn't completely rinse the brush clean. And so there's maybe a little bit of product. Maybe there's a little bit of soap in that water. If that gets stuck down there, you will probably end up with like hairs that are kind of cracking off. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but you'll start using your brush and all of a sudden hairs will start to crack off. That's probably because you've got water and product kind of stuck down there. So you want to make sure like when you're washing your brush, you're washing it this way. And when you dry it, you're washing it this way. At least when you dry, angled down. The water is draining down. I use these Sigma brush towers so that you can you stick them in and they hang this way. Again, I will link those down below if you're interested, but it makes sure that they are kind of up and down. And the other tip in terms of washing your brushes, with soap and water is you'll probably think that they're clean and they're not. The water may be running clear. They may look kind of clean. Just do it again. Just use like a little bit more soap, a little bit more water, and make sure to rinse them really, really well. I will actually show you a brush that was not rinsed very well. Do I still have it here? Hold on. Yeah, here's a brush. I hope you guys can see that. It was not rinsed well. And so it looks like it's got like white things up there. That's basically dried soap. And so I'm gonna have to wash this brush again and make sure I rinse it well this time. But yeah, you definitely want to rinse it really, really well. And when it comes to natural hair brushes, you just want to be really gentle. You want to take the soap, you want to just bring it back and forth. You want to lather it up a little bit. And then when you're done washing it, you just want to squeeze, almost like when you're washing your hair, you just kind of squeeze the water out, squeeze it out. And then you want to hang it upside down. You should probably take the same care when it comes to synthetic hair brushes, but I love the fact that they're just not as gentle. And so I'll just go in a little bit more roughly with my synthetic hair brushes. And when I rinse them, I get in there, I rinse them really roughly, and then I just dry them. and they're fine. At least my BK Beauty brushes, my Bobbi Brown brushes, my Hourglass brushes, they can take a beating and they're totally, totally fine. So I think that's it. I have been talking for a really long time. This is gonna be a very long video. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it was helpful. Let me know down below in the comment section your thoughts, and I will leave a link to all the brushes that I talked about, all the cleaners and everything that I mentioned if you are interested. And, you know, definitely stay tuned for an upcoming video. I think it's already been announced, but the Beautylish gift card event is coming up, and they have the absolute best selection of brushes. They carry Sonia G. They're the exclusive retailers for Sonia G and for Wang. So you may want to wait for this gift card event to make any purchases, but that is definitely coming up. And when it comes to those two brands, Sonia G and Wang, you can't go wrong. All of their brushes are absolutely phenomenal. I could only talk about so many in this video. So anyway, I've done enough yapping. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.